This is Atomic Biscuits, and I'm your host, BACFA. Welcome to Atomic Biscuits 2024 11/10 Carillion. As we come off the Trump victory of 2024, we're going to start over at Breitbart.com. I'll leave this and all the links to stories I cover today on my account at Gab at BACFA. RIP Hollywood celebrity presidential endorsements: Taylor Swift, George Clooney, Robert De Niro, Beyonce fail to secure victory for Kamala. The combined star power of Taylor Swift, Beyonce, Cardi B, Jennifer Lopez, George Clooney, Julia Roberts, Bruce Springsteen, Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro, and many, many more failed to carry Kamala Harris over the finish line on Tuesday, a humiliating defeat for the entertainment industry, which had mobilized many of its biggest celebrities this election cycle in the service of the Democrat Party. President-elect Donald Trump's resounding victory, he won the electoral and popular votes, signals the diminishing power of Hollywood stars as political influencers and message amplifiers. Hollywood pumped up the volume for Kamala Harris to ear-splitting levels in the closing weeks of the campaign, but in the end, American voters tuned them out. The results don't bode well for the Hollywood-DC partnership. No one likes a flop, especially image-obsessed celebrities who will think twice before publicly backing another major Democrat. Trump's win is especially humiliating for Taylor Swift, whose endorsement of Kamala Harris was trumpeted by the corporate news media as an electoral game-changer. Swift was seen as the holy grail of celebrity endorsers thanks to her preternaturally faithful fan base and her ability to command media coverage. Swift timed her endorsement for maximum impact, landing just minutes after the ABC News presidential debate in September, but even she seemed less than gung-ho for Kamala, telling her fans, "Your research is all yours to do, and the choice is yours to make." There's a copy of her Instagram post here. Beyonce was also a major get for Kamala Harris. The mega pop star officially backed Kamala relatively late in the game, appearing but not performing at a rally in Houston in late October. Putting abortion front and center, the singer said, "I'm here as a mother who cares deeply about the world my children and all of our children live in, a world where we have the freedom to control our bodies, a world where we're not divided." What followed was an unprecedented blitz of celebrity endorsements for Kamala Harris. Nearly every day in the final 2 weeks of the campaign, a different Hollywood star was publicly supporting the Democrat ticket. Julia Roberts and George Clooney put out matching his and her commercials. Leonardo DiCaprio pushed Kamala as the environmental candidate. J-Lo tried to rally the Puerto Rican vote. But American voters, reeling from record-high consumer prices, punishing taxes, and the tsunami of illegal immigration, weren't in the mood for a lecture from fabulously wealthy stars. Celebrity endorsements fell out of vogue among Democrats following Hillary Clinton's loss in 2016, but they returned to style in 2020 when the Joe Biden campaign recruited stars galore to host virtual rallies and fundraisers during the pandemic. Kamala Harris had originally wanted to avoid too many celebrity endorsements in the early days of her campaign after she usurped the party from Biden, fearing the same accusations of elitism that plagued Hillary Clinton. But as her polling showed her virtually tied with Trump in key swing states, Kamala Harris unleashed Hollywood star power in a major way. Other stars who came to her aid late in the game were Lady Gaga, Harrison Ford, and the cast of Disney's Marvel's Avengers. In the end, the stars went down in the biggest bomb of the year, the Kamala Harris campaign. There's, of course, always more to read over at Breitbart.com. Trump has sweeping plans for his second administration. Here's what he has proposed. This is posted by Tyler Durden over at ZeroHedge.com, authored by Jack Phillips. via the Epoch Times. President-elect Donald Trump has made a number of sweeping proposals for a second term in office, outlining a wide-ranging agenda that targets federal regulations, taxes, immigration, and social issues. On immigration, since 2015, Trump has made curbing illegal immigration a cornerstone of his campaigns. As president, he built or reconstructed about 400 miles of border barrier along the U.S.-Mexico border and implemented a number of rules curbing illegal migration into the country. During the campaign, Trump often said that he would initiate the largest mass deportation effort in U.S. history if elected. Recently, he also warned Mexico that he would impose a 25% tariff targeting the country if it fails to curb illegal immigration, and that he would raise that tariff if Mexico doesn't comply. Also, he suggested more enhanced screenings for immigrants, ending birthright citizenship, which may require a constitutional amendment, and reimposing certain policies enacted during his first term, such as the Remain in Mexico Protocol. Tom Homan, a former acting director of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, who is expected to join the new administration, told media outlets last year that the scale of deportations depends on what resources are available. During a 60 Minutes interview in October, Homan was asked about whether families would be separated. Homan responded, "Families can be deported together." Vice President-elect J.D. Vance said in his debate with Minnesota Governor Tim Walz on October 1st that deporting criminals would be a second Trump administration's initial focus. "You've got to re-implement Donald Trump's border policies, build the wall, re-implement deportations," Vance said, adding the United States has 20 to 25 million illegal immigrants in the country. What do we do with them? I think the first thing that we do is start with the criminal migrants. On taxes and regulations. Throughout the 2024 campaign, Trump has promised to curb federal regulations that he said would limit the creation of new U.S. jobs. He also has pledged to keep intact a 2017 tax cut that he supported and signed while in office. His team has also proposed a further round of individual and corporate tax cuts beyond those initiated in his first term. Trump has pledged to reduce the corporate tax rate from 21% to 15% for companies that make their products in the United States. In a bid to win Nevada, Trump earlier this year pledged to end the taxation of tips and overtime wages to aid some service workers and waiters. He has pledged not to cut or tax Social Security benefits. Trump also said that as president, he would pressure the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates, but wouldn't make any demands on the central bank. Some of his proposals would require congressional action. As of Wednesday morning, the GOP is projected to retake the Senate, but the picture around the House is still murky. On tariffs. In multiple campaign stops this year, Trump floated the idea of a 10% or more tariff on all goods imported into the United States, which he said would eliminate the country's trade deficit. He's also said he would have the authority to set higher tariffs on countries that have put tariffs on U.S. imports. He's threatened to impose a 200% tariff on some imported cars, saying he is determined in particular to keep cars from Mexico from coming into the country. Trump has targeted China in particular. He proposes phasing out Chinese imports of goods such as electronics, steel, and pharmaceuticals over 4 years. He seeks to prohibit Chinese companies from owning U.S. real estate and infrastructure in the energy and tech sectors. To me, the most beautiful word in the dictionary is tariffs, Trump said in an interview with John Micklethwait, editor-in-chief of Bloomberg News in October. It's my favorite word. He added at the time, "You see these empty, old, beautiful steel mills and factories that are empty and falling down," referring to facilities that used to make goods in the United States. "We're going to bring the companies back. We're going to lower taxes for companies that are going to make their products in the USA, and we're going to protect those companies with strong tariffs," Trump said. Micklethwait said that some economists have projected the former president's economic policies, including tariffs, could add trillions to the U.S. deficit. But Trump said that a number of countries, including allies, have taken advantage of us more so than our enemies. On more drilling. The former president said that he wants to cut federal regulations on drilling for oil and natural gas, a move that he said would lower energy costs and inflation. In multiple instances, Trump said he would reauthorize drilling in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge in Alaska, which was suspended under the Biden administration. Meanwhile, he would pull the United States out of the Paris Climate Accords, a worldwide plan that claims to reduce carbon emissions. Trump also said he would roll back some federal policies around electric vehicles. In his campaign, Trump has often said that gas prices were much lower under his administration than they have been under the Biden administration. He has suggested that prices would again fall when he takes office. When I left office, gasoline had reached $1.87 a gallon. We actually had many months where it was lower than that, Trump told reporters over the summer, but we hit $1.87, which was a perfect place, an absolutely beautiful number. According to AAA, the average price for a gallon of regular gasoline stands at around $3.10. The highest recorded average price for a gallon was on June 14, 2022, when it reached $5.01. AAA figures show. The Federal Energy Information Administration's data showed that the average annual price for a gallon of gasoline did not exceed $3 under the first Trump administration. On social policies, Trump has pledged to require U.S. colleges and universities to defend American tradition and Western civilization and purge them of diversity and inclusion programs, which he and Republicans have said are leftist in nature. He said he would direct the Justice Department to pursue civil rights cases against schools that engage in racial discrimination. At kindergarten through 12 schools, Trump would support programs allowing parents to use public funds for private or religious instruction. Trump also wants to abolish the Federal Department of Education and leave states in control of schooling. Regarding abortion, Trump has said that a federal ban on abortion is not needed and that the issue should be resolved by states. He's also said he backs rules that advance in vitro fertilization, birth control, and prenatal care. In campaign events and interviews, Trump has been critical of schools allowing transgender individuals to compete in women's sports, saying that he would impose a ban on such practices. It's a man playing in the game, Trump said at an October town hall event. Look at what's happening in swimming. Look at the records being broken. Anyway, that's over at zerohedge.com. I encourage you to go click through and check it out for yourself. You know, it gets a lot of flack and is maybe redacted off a lot of platforms, but references to 17 and Q and all that stuff from the first Trump campaign are back. And they're all over the place, in subtle places and not so subtle places. I found one of these over at theblaze.com. There's an article titled, "You Are the Media Now. Elon Musk Heralds the Death of Legacy Journalism." This is by Andrew Chapados. And I'm just wondering how much rhetoric they're going to pick up on and repeat as part of this new campaign as they solidify their position heading into 2025. The election of Donald Trump shows a clear direction as to where media consumers are headed, and it's not CNN, begins this article. Mainstream media is once again running to the hills following a second presidential election victory for Donald Trump, leaving audiences to wonder how and why network anchors seemingly didn't shoot straight with them in their coverage, with networks seemingly and nonsensically taking forever to call the election for Trump. A feeling of distrust in mainstream media seemed ever present as votes rolled in on election night. Case in point, CNN didn't call the election for Trump until well after 5 a.m. Eastern Time. The reality of a Trump victory seemed like it was never going to set in for some network anchors on election night, and despite an obvious shift in priorities among the American public, broadcasters went steadfast past midnight as if Kamala Harris still might become president. CNN's Jake Tapper was shocked to learn how much Vice President Harris underperformed, despite the Harris campaign's platitudes and non-answers. According to The View, Harris even ran a flawless campaign despite falling millions of votes short of Trump. Over on MSNBC, blame for the loss quickly shifted to white women and racism on the part of Latino voters, even though they came out in record numbers for the Republicans. At the same time, cable news' blatant disregard for public sentiment has been painfully obvious to one man in particular, Elon Musk. "You are the media now," Musk posted on X just after 1 a.m. Musk later noted, "The future is going to be fantastic," as he continues to drive traffic to X, citing record usage of the platform on election night. "News should come from the people, from those actually on the scene and those who actually are subject matter experts," Musk said, echoing what has become one of the most popular forms of modern journalism. Musk has pushed a free speech mantra on his platform, leading to a steady flow of content creators and journalists jumping ship, with the assurance that the vast majority of content on the X will not be deranked in any way. Social media coordinator and on-the-ground journalist Yakov Pollock told Blaze News that if it weren't for Musk, it would be a lot harder to get the truth to people. He added, "Trust in the mainstream media is at an all-time low and has been super low for a while now. I do think that the mainstream media will continue to play a role in calling elections. However, I do think more and more people are turning to X and other alternative media. Some independent journalists will play a bigger role in the future," Pollock added. This sentiment was shared by Oren Levy, whose viral news videos have broken dozens of stories around migrant hotels and the mayor's office in New York City. "The mainstream media has always been a hub of misinformation," he said. "It's always had a political agenda with some of them. Some stories they won't touch, even when they're big issues. They're losing a lot of trust." Levy added that he believes mainstream media are forced to turn a blind eye to some stories due to their donors who don't want you to see everything that actually happens. Musk agreed in another statement, saying that the reality of the election was plain to see on his platform, despite what mainstream media said. Musk continued saying legacy media lied when repeating his new tagline, "You are the media now." At the same time, though, Levy warned that misinformation is everywhere on social media platforms, even X. Some people are turning into the mainstream media themselves. More and more people are showing up to these protests, but they have a clear agenda. Independent media has definitely been infiltrated, he concluded. For now, Musk pushing for further video integration and even news articles seems to be making his platform look more and more like a replacement for networks, especially given that it comes with and offers recurring payments. That story is over at theblaze.com. Senior Harris advisor deletes X account as massive scandal brews over $20 million in campaign debt. It's over at zerohedge.com. Former senior Obama advisor turned senior Kamala Harris advisor David Fluff has deleted his X account after suggesting on Wednesday that Harris's landslide defeat was Joe Biden's fault for not dropping out soon enough, and right as massive campaign debt scandal erupts. "We dug out of a deep hole, but not enough. A devastating loss," Fluff posted to X in what many interpreted as a dig to Biden. That said, was this about more than salty tears? It then deletes his account. After raising over $1 billion and left with $118 million in the bank as of October 16th, the Harris campaign ended the 2024 election season with at least $20 million in debt, according to Politico's Christopher Catalago. Breitbart CEO Matt Boyle says a Kamala campaign staffer said there is a massive scandal here worthy of an audit. Boyle's post in its entirety reads, "Okay, this just got very explosive. A Kamala campaign staffer who saw these posts called me just now and said there's a massive scandal here worthy of an audit. The $20 million debt thing is real. Rob Flaherty, this staffer, said, is currently shopping around the Kamala fundraising email list to anyone who wants to try to raise the money back. This includes other campaigns and outside groups. Flaherty is the deputy campaign manager and reports to Jen O'Malley Dillon. Jen blew through $1 billion in a few months, and it was all Jen's idea to do the concerts," Kamala campaign advisor told me. This source added that O'Malley Dillon did these concerts like Katy Perry, Lizzo, Eminem, Bruce Springsteen, etc., at the expense of prioritizing and spending money on social media and other campaign priorities. Apparently, a group in Georgia had to lay off 100 people because they couldn't pay them. It's unclear at this time if the campaign paid the talent to perform, but the cost of production for the events was immense. What's more, this Kamala campaign staffer said several people who were working for the Kamala Harris for president campaign are still waiting several overdue payments they were promised for their work, i.e., they didn't pay the staff. This Kamala campaign staffer said to me, of Joe Malley Dillon, that's at Joe Malley Dillon, JoMalleydillon, people didn't like working with her. Many people in the campaign felt like we lost because Kamala wasn't allowed to run her campaign. They were running Joe Biden's campaign instead of a Kamala campaign. Obnoxious and very much a gatekeeper and interfering with the vice president's people who were trying to do their job. According to data from the Federal Election Commission, the FEC, the Harris campaign had received over $1 billion up until October 16th, including when it was the Joe Biden campaign. Over the same period, the Trump campaign took in $392 million and spent $345 million. Democrats spent $1.1 billion on aired advertising and associated reservations, according to Ad Impact, the site which monitors the cost and content of ads. Newsweek reports, according to the New York Times, the Harris campaign spent six figures to fly banners over 4 NFL games in October in an attempt to reach male voters in swing states. The Guardian reported in November that it also spent a reported $450,000 a day to have ads displayed on the Las Vegas Sphere in the swing state of Nevada. Ultimately, the messaging did not appear to hit its marks. Speaking to Newsweek, Mark Shanahan, an American politics expert who teaches at the University of Surrey in the UK, said Harris never really landed her economic message during the presidential election campaign. Once again, the Democrats underestimated the appeal of Trump. He turns politics into a soap opera, and it keeps many more than his MAGA loyalists tuned in. Allied to that, he offered simple messages. The economy is poor and he can fix it, and America's troubles start at its borders and he can fix that too, said Shanahan. Harris had too little time to introduce herself to America. She never really landed her messages on the economy with great clarity, and the one area we really thought would boost her around reproductive rights really didn't get the expected cut through with voters. That story's over at ZeroHedge.com. Big Tech is already chomping at the bit and bending the knee to the Trump administration. I think they know that some guardrails are going to come off and some controls are going to be shut down. And then we have this article from theregister.com. Flanked by Palantir and Amazon Web Services, Anthropic's Claude marches into U.S. defense intelligence. An emotionally manipulable AI in the hands of the Pentagon and CIA. This surely ends well. This is by Brendan Vigilero over at theregister.com. Palantir has announced a partnership with Anthropic and Amazon Web Services to build a cloudy Claude platform suitable for the most secure of the U.S. government's defense and intelligence use cases. In an announcement today, the three firms said the partnership would integrate Claude 3 and 3.5 with Palantir's artificial intelligence platform hosted on AWS. Both Palantir and AWS have been awarded Impact Level 6 IL6 certification by the Department of Defense, which allows the processing and storage of classified data up to secret level. Claude was first made available to the defense and intelligence communities in early October, an Anthropic spokesperson told the Register. The U.S. government will be using Claude to reduce data processing times, identify patterns and trends, streamline document reviews, and help officials make more informed decisions in time-sensitive situations while preserving their decision-making authorities, the press release noted. Palantir is proud to be the first industry partner to bring Claude models to classified environments, said Palantir's CTO, Shyam Sankar. A partnership with Anthropic and AWS provides U.S. defense and intelligence communities the tool chain they need to harness and deploy AI models securely, bringing the next generation of decision advantage to their most critical missions. Acceptable use carve-out not necessary? Unlike Meta, which announced yesterday it was opening Llama to the U.S. government for defense and national security applications, Anthropic doesn't even need to make an exception to its acceptable use policy to allow for potentially dangerous applications of Claude in the hands of the Department of Defense, CIA, or other defense or intelligence branch using it. Meta's policy specifically prohibits the use of Llama for military, warfare, espionage, and other critical applications, for which Meta has granted some exceptions for the feds. No such restrictions are included in Anthropic's acceptable use policy. Even high-risk use cases, which Anthropic defines as the use of Claude, that pose an elevated risk of harm, leave defense and intelligence applications out, only mentioning legal, healthcare, insurance, finance, employment, housing, academia, and media usage of Claude as domains that are vital to public welfare and social equity. When asked about its acceptable use policy and how that might pertain to government applications, particularly defense and intelligence as indicated in today's announcement, Anthropic only referred us to a blog post from June about the company's plans to expand government access to Claude. Anthropic's mission is to build reliable, interpretable, steerable AI systems, the blog stated. We're eager to make these tools available through expanded offerings to government users. Anthropic's post mentions that it's already established a method of granting acceptable use policy exceptions for government users, noting that those allowances are carefully calibrated to enable beneficial use by carefully selected government agencies. What those exceptions are is unclear, and Anthropic didn't directly answer questions to that end, and the acceptable use policy leaves a lot of unanswered questions around the defense and intelligence use of Claude. The existing carve-out structure, Anthropic noted, allows Claude to be used for legally authorized foreign intelligence analysis and providing warning in advance of potential military activities, opening a window for diplomacy to prevent or deter them. Anthropic said all other restrictions in our general usage policy, including those concerning disinformation campaigns, the design or use of weapons, censorship, and malicious cyber operations, remain. We'll just have to hope no one decides to emotionally blackmail Claude into violating whichever of Anthropic's rules the U.S. government still has to follow. Again, that's over at theregister.com.
You say clearing out the corruption in your terms. Would that mean clearing out the top level federal service workers that are currently at the FDA and the CDC?
In some categories, I would say.
What does that look like? Yeah.
In some categories of workers, there are entire departments, like the nutrition departments at FDA, that have to go. That are not doing their job. They're not protecting our kids. Why do we have Fruit Loops in this country that have 18 or 19 ingredients, and you go to Canada and it's got 2 or 3?
Would you eliminate any of the agencies?
To eliminate the agencies, as long as it requires congressional approval, I wouldn't be doing that. And I can get the corruption out of the agencies. This is what I've been doing for 40 years. I've sued all those agencies. I have a PhD in corporate corruption, and that's what I do. And once they're not corrupt, once Americans are getting good science and are allowed to make their own choices, they're going to get a lot healthier.
I'm going to speak some hard truths to my friends in the Democratic Party. This is not Joe Biden's fault. It's not Kamala Harris's fault. It's not Barack Obama's fault. It is the fault of the Democratic Party in not knowing how to communicate effectively to voters. We are not the party of common sense, which is what the message that voters sent to us. For a number of reasons. We don't know how to speak to voters. When we address Latino, and language has meaning. When we address Latino voters as Latinx, for instance, because that's the politically correct thing to do, it makes them think that we don't even live on the same planet as they do. When we are too afraid to say that, hey, college kids, if you're trashing a campus at Columbia University because you're unhappy about some sort of policy and you're taking over a university and you're trashing it and preventing other students from learning, that is unacceptable. But we're so worried about alienating one or another cohort in our coalition that we don't know what to say when normal people look at that and say, wait a second, I send my kids to college so they can learn, not so that they can burn buildings and trash lawns, right? And so on and so forth. When we put pronouns after names and say she, her, as opposed to saying, you know what, if I call you by the wrong pronoun, call me out, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. But stop with the virtue signaling and just speak to people like they're normal. There's nothing I'm going to say to Sher Michael that I'm not going to say to you, that I'm not going to say to somebody else. I speak the same language to everybody. But that's not what Democrats do. We constantly try to parse out different ways of speaking to different cohorts because our focus groups or our polling shows that so-and-so appeals to such and such. That's not how normal people think. It's not common sense. And we need to start being the party of common sense again. Joe Biden is not responsible for that. Neither is Kamala Harris. It is a problem that Democrats have had for years. I've been banging the drum on this for, I don't know how, probably 10 years, if not longer on this. We need to get back to being the party of common sense, that people look at us and say, we understand you. We appreciate what you say because you speak our language. And until we do that, we should stop blaming other people for our own mistakes.
I think the Democratic Party, you're right, it is hard to lose it. Republicans went through this after 2012. And I think about the condition of the Democratic Party. It's been almost fully oriented around Trump for a decade. I mean, look and look at Biden. I mean, his basic campaign promise initially was to rid the country of Trump and Trumpism. And as he leaves office, Trumpism, and the MAGA movement is stronger than ever. So not only are you just dealing with the wreckage of having lost an election, you're dealing with the total failure of the project of the current president as he set it out when he got elected in the first place. I think part of the answers that you all are seeking are more than just tactical.
I agree.
So some of it is, what are we? Who are we?
What do we stand for?
What do we stand for? And, I think both parties go through this after these kinds of losses. But when you look at how Biden is leaving, the very thing he vowed to rid us of is now the ascendant political movement in this country. It's got to be a pretty demoralizing feeling.
In a stronger position than
he's never been stronger. He's never been more popular, and he's never been in a stronger political position to execute.
Can I just say one thing about that?
Worst vice president, you're the worst border czar. There's never been anybody bad like you. Kamala, you're fired. Get the hell out of here. Get out of here.
Trump expected to clean house at FBI upon his return to office. That's the headline over at the Washington Times, WashingtonTimes.com. FBI senior executives are reportedly in a state of shock and anxiety following President-elect Donald Trump's victory over Vice President Kamala Harris, according to anonymous sources within the Bureau. The atmosphere at the Bureau headquarters is tense with the anticipation of a major restructuring under Mr. Trump's incoming administration. FBI Director Christopher Wray and Deputy Director Paul Abbott are not expected to retain their positions once Mr. Trump assumes his post. The anxiety extends beyond top leadership, with sources indicating that no employee at GS-14 level or higher feels secure in their position. There's a complicated history between Mr. Trump and the FBI. The Crossfire Hurricane investigation during the 2016 campaign examined potential links between Mr. Trump's campaign and Russia. A whistleblower recently revealed that former FBI Director James Comey allegedly initiated an unauthorized criminal investigation of Mr. Trump when he began his first campaign in 2015. Further strain between the president-elect and the Bureau ensued after the FBI's 2022 Mar-a-Lago search and subsequent classified documents case against Mr. Trump, which may now be in jeopardy due to his re-election. Sources also expressed concern about Elon Musk's potential role in a government efficiency commission, suggesting that his involvement could lead to significant staffing reductions at FBI headquarters. Many FBI agents have been focused on investigating January 6th cases during the Biden administration, but Mr. Trump has promised to pardon these defendants at the start of his second term. Some Bureau personnel are reportedly amused by this prospect, and others are already considering transitions to private sector security jobs in anticipation of the changes ahead. Anyway, this is over at WashingtonTimes.com. Newsweek.com posted, mysterious U.S. military space plane begins advanced maneuvers in orbit. This was published on November 7th. In a cutting-edge milestone for orbital innovation, the U.S. military's secretive X-37B spaceplane has begun advanced aerobraking maneuvers to shift its orbit. Launched on its seventh mission, OTV-7, in December of 2023 via SpaceX's Falcon Heavy rocket, the X-37B has been orbiting the Earth in a highly elliptical path, reaching well beyond the altitude at which satellites normally stay in sync with the planet's rotation, for rapidly closing in near Earth's atmosphere. Now, instead of relying on fuel, the spaceplane is using atmospheric drag to reduce its orbit gradually, a process that could extend mission durations significantly. Although information has been released about the spaceplane's capabilities, much about it remains a mystery, including exactly what it's used for. The X-37B is a highly classified, unmanned spacecraft developed by Boeing for the U.S. Department of Defense. While the exact nature of its missions remain undisclosed, the X-37B has been confirmed to conduct experimental research, such as studying the effects of space radiation on various materials, including seeds. A recently released Boeing space video showcases the spaceplane's latest maneuvers, which create intense friction as it dips into the outer reaches of Earth's atmosphere, causing the spacecraft's underbelly to glow red and orange. When we aerobrake, we utilize atmospheric drag to effectively step down our apogee one pass at a time until we get to the orbital regime that we want it to be in, Boeing engineer John Ely explained in the video. When we do this, we save enormous amounts of propellant, and that's really why aerobraking is important. This precision-driven maneuver aims to position the spacecraft for safe disposal of service module components. Secretary of the Air Force Frank Kendall commended the technique as groundbreaking innovation in a statement last month. General Chance Saltzman, Chief of Space Operations, echoed this sentiment, calling the maneuver an incredibly important milestone for the Space Force's expanding capabilities. The mission has also shown a light on broader potential of aerobraking for extending space missions without the heavy fuel burden typically associated with orbit adjustments. According to Holly Murphy, program director for Boeing's Experimental Systems Group, the X-37B's achievements continue to push forward the boundaries of U.S. space capabilities. X-37B missions have continuously advanced our nation's space capabilities by testing new technologies that reduce risk and inform our future space architectures, she said in the video. Space is a vast and unforgiving environment where testing technologies is critical to the success of future endeavors, Michelle Parker, vice president of Boeing's Space Mission Systems, added in a statement. There's no other space platform as capable, flexible, and maneuverable as the X-37B, and its next demonstration will be another proof point that this test vehicle sets the pace of innovation, she said. That's again over at Newsweek.com. Do we think the timing of Olaf Scholz's government after 3 years of running a coalition coming apart at the same time as Trump winning the presidency, do we think these things are at all related? I'd love to hear what you think over on Gab. Again, you can find me at BACFA. This story comes from express.co.uk. Germany to enforce national service and drastic plan as stupid. Scholz prepares for World War III. Putin's brutal invasion of Ukraine has prompted a major rethink in German political circles and wider society about obligatory military service. This is by John Varga. Germany's government has given the green light to draft a law that paves the way for the return of national service. The legislation will allow Berlin to gauge the willingness of the country's 18-year-olds to serve in Germany's army. Putin's brutal invasion of Ukraine has prompted a major rethink in German political circles and wider society about obligatory military service. The country scrapped national service in 2011 after years of seeming détente with Russia. Berlin now wants to boost its pool of soldiers in the face of a growing threat from a more aggressive Russia. The army currently has 180,000 soldiers, which it wants to increase to 203,000 by 2031, as well as 60,000 reservists. The aim is to reach 200,000 more reservists, which would enable Germany to swiftly expand its troops to around 460,000 in the event of war. Under the model proposed by the German government, all men turning 18, which is estimated to be about 300,000 in 2025, will have to fill out a digital survey on their interest in joining the army. Young women will also be sent the survey but are not obliged to fill out the form. So that is over at express.co.uk. Our friend Representative Thomas Massey says he is open to Agriculture Secretary role in Trump administration. This is by Jim Hoft over at thegatewaypundit.com. Representative Massey, Republican from Kentucky, known for his strong advocacy for small-scale farming and raw natural food sources, has indicated he is ready and willing to join President-elect Trump's administration in a capacity related to agriculture. In a statement shared on the social platform X, Massey clarified Wednesday that he has not yet accepted a formal role, specifically denying recent rumors that he has received any formal commitments or offers from the Trump transition team. Massey also reflected on President Trump's recent victory, viewing it as a clear mandate to address critical agricultural issues and improve Americans' health through sustainable practices. Massey wrote, President Trump's resounding victory secured a mandate for big ideas like reversing chronic disease, conserving our land, and empowering American farmers. His campaign unified many neglected constituencies, from the Amish who just want to be left alone to grow healthy food, to parents who want more access to nutritious food for their families. I stand ready and willing to help the president with any part of his bold agenda to focus on the health and well-being of Americans, but I have received no commitments or offers from President Trump's team, and any discussion of the transition are premature. Massey has previously indicated that he would be interested in serving as Secretary of Agriculture. I think I could do some good for this country as Secretary of Agriculture for any president, he tweeted in July. Massey issued a statement on Friday, October 25th, in which he endorsed Trump for president. On October 27th, Sunday, Massey told Fox News Digital in a statement that he had spoken with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Trump. Massey, who describes himself as on X as an engineer, farmer, and inventor, has called for reforming the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. End corruption in government. Reform FDA, USDA, and CDC so people have real choices and honest information, uncorrupted by corporate influence, he tweeted in September. I think we would do a lot worse. Massey is a great thinker. He's an inventor. He is a clever fellow. If you haven't seen his interview with Tucker, I'd encourage you to go have a listen. He is quite well informed.
Cass has always reminded me, we need to stay humble. I mean, we got to be courageous, and there's determination, there's humility, and we do that because we believe we have a strong faith in God. And I think that matters a lot. And one of the things that we have to do is we have to stay really focused on exactly what needs to be done. We have to do this. We have to do this under the rule of law, something that the left has totally abused. And we have to do this peacefully. And we have to do this smartly, and we have to do this in a very disciplined manner. And I do believe that as we go forward here, number one, I want Donald Trump to stay safe. I want that man to stay secure. I don't want anything to happen to that man. And I know these people on the left, they'll try anything to to continue to stay in power or to do something crazy. So I really want people to pray for Donald Trump, pray for his family, pray for his children, and obviously pray for our country.
This is historic, but I want to, number one, thank God for leading, guiding, and directing us. We have all been incredibly persecuted. Owen put in prison, Steve Bannon, the total harassment, Roger Stone, General Flynn, the former head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, National Security Advisor to President Trump, who they tried to destroy, but we have been vindicated. And General Flynn said this morning he could feel God's spirit moving, and his gut told him Trump was going to win. And ladies and gentlemen, he has been working tirelessly, and he joins us now. He's been all over Florida fighting today. General, thank you for the times you've joined us today. You've been very gracious. Please, if you can, as much time as you've got, give us a 35,000-foot view, then zoom in. But as you said today, this morning with me, when you predicted the victory, you said, listen, we don't have time to celebrate. This is a major battle, but we've got to secure the victory, and it goes into high gear once he is president-elect. So I'm getting chills right now. General, we're listening to you, one of the most respected generals in modern history, one of the only good ones we've seen in decades. That's why they came after you. You're our general. You're advising Trump. What do we do, General?
Okay, so I said to you this morning, and I'm in a place I'm already looking at. I'm starting to move boxes out of government offices. This is the kind of stuff that we're going to start doing. So I said to you this morning, Alex, that we, in the military, we use this phrase, fight through the objective, which means you seize the objective, which was the victory that we just sustained tonight. And this is a great victory, not only the White House, but the Senate and the House. So we are now going to go back in. The Democratic Party is dead. Mainstream media or the corporate woke media is dead. These are has-beens. These are bygone eras that are no longer there. And now what we have to do, that we've achieved this objective, we have to fight through the objective, which means that there is going to be much more work. There's going to be greater sacrifice. And that's going to start, I want everybody that's listening, anybody that's still awake, get some sleep, get some rest, and take a deep breath. Enjoy this victory for a short period of time. Feel good about it. Stay humble. Stay ready. Stay strong. And then we are going to move from this point on up until the inauguration. Donald Trump, he knows that he has got to stay alive, because that's one of the other problems that we are going to face is the left in this country, the Marxist left in this country, that are not going to give up power that easily. And they have already attempted to kill this man a couple of times. So we have to fight through the objectives. I know Trump is going to come up on the stage shortly here, but that's what I mean when I say fight through the objective. We won this. This is a secure victory, and this is hands down a historic moment for the country. This is the defeat of the globalist movement in our country. This is the defeat of the Marxist communist body of people that are in our government and in many of the institutions of government. This is a huge victory. Now's the time. Tighten up the bootstraps and get ready. Between now and inauguration, we're going to experience a whole bunch of other crazy things. But now it's time to stay focused, stay focused and get ready, because once Inauguration Day hits, now it's time to go to work. And when I say go to work, if people think that getting to the election was crazy and hard and tough, and yes, it was, I got it. But it's going to be the next phase of operations is going to be to basically take this government apart piece by piece in many cases, and really start to hone in on what is important, what are the key parts of the federal government that we still need to maintain, and what are those parts of the federal government that no longer are doing us a service. In fact, most of them are doing a disservice. And we've got to eliminate the weaponization of the federal government against the American people. I mean, everything that we have experienced, from Russiagate to a couple of assassination attempts. I mean, and I like to joke here and there, but I don't even want to joke here tonight. This is a very serious time. This is a huge, huge historic victory. Probably in terms of the history of our country, this is probably one of the major wars that we won. And this war has been being waged since the 6th of January, because that was a setup. And we have people, and Owen knows this, we have people that went to jail that are still in prison. Those people are going to end up being vindicated and released here in the coming months. And these are the kinds of things that I know are on the table. And when I say this is the end of the Democrat Party died a long time ago. And the other thing that this is the end of, I call this the podcast presidency. I mentioned that earlier to you, Alex. You know, you've been at the tip of the spear for decades, and there's been others now that are in the fold, that are out there doing great work for the country. These citizen journalists, these podcasts. That's going to be the emerging media, and that's where people are going to go to discover and find the truth. What is going to die is going to be the mainstream corporate media. Fox News should be ashamed of themselves. I mean, Georgia was called hours ago, and they've been holding Georgia. They finally called it, 30 minutes ago. Fox News should be ashamed of themselves. They're as far as I'm concerned, I'll speak for myself, but I think I speak for millions of people, and I know you have millions of people listening. The corporate media is dead. Turn those people off. Turn those networks off if you're watching them. Tell anybody that's still watching them to shut them off. They're lying. They've been part of the propaganda. They've been part of the projection. They've been part of the deception that to try to convince us that Kamala Harris, well, number one, that Joe Biden was actually in charge of our country. It's so sad that we have a president who is in the ill state that he is in, and then Kamala Harris knowing it the entire time. So all these people in the security state, all these people in the military industrial complex that have been holding on like a clutch, to our throats for the last 4 years, actually for the last 8 years. And anyway, I feel really good tonight. I'm in a really good spot, and I'm in a quiet room right now because we got about 1,000 people outside that are just so excited. Last thing, we need to stay humble, okay? Because as you guys have always reminded us on your great show, and hold on.
General, it's okay. You're great. You're saying as the broadcast has reminded people, stay humble.
Yeah, as your broadcast has always reminded, we need to stay humble. I mean, we got to be courageous, and there's determination, there's humility, and we do that because we believe we have a strong faith in God, and I think that matters a lot. And one of the things that we have to do is we have to stay really focused on exactly what needs to be done. We have to do this. We have to do this under the rule of law, something that the left has totally abused, and we have to do this peacefully, and we have to do this smartly, and we have to do this in a very disciplined manner. And I do believe that as we go forward here, number one, I want Donald Trump to stay safe. I want that man to stay secure. I don't want anything to happen to that man. And I know these people on the left, they'll try anything to continue to stay in power or to do something crazy. So I really want people to pray for Donald Trump, pray for his family, pray for his children, and obviously pray for our country.
I can't imagine who's happier with a Trump win, Charlie Kirk and the TPUSA people, or Kash Patel. He has always been right there in the thick of things. Econotimes.com has this story. Trump aide Kash Patel demands massive declassification, calls for release of Epstein and Diddy lists as truth must come out. In a striking call for transparency, Trump aide Kash Patel has demanded that the former president declassify a trove of sensitive documents from his administration, including what has been referred to as the Epstein list and the Diddy list. Patel, a former high-ranking national security official, argues that the American public has a right to know the full extent of information previously kept confidential under the Trump administration. The request has sent shockwaves through political and social circles, as both lists are rumored to contain names tied to controversial figures and potentially explosive allegations. Patel insists that such disclosures are essential to restore public trust in the government, claiming that the truth must come out no matter how uncomfortable. The Epstein list refers to alleged records associated with Jeffrey Epstein, the late financier who faced charges of sex trafficking before his death in 2019. Epstein's connections with powerful individuals across politics, entertainment, and business sectors have long fueled speculation about the identities of those involved. The Diddy list, less widely known but reportedly associated with hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs, allegedly involves individuals connected to entertainment and political elites. Both lists are shrouded in mystery, with rumors and speculation adding to their intrigue. Patel, a key figure in Trump's inner circle, has publicly emphasized the need for accountability. These documents, particularly those linked to Epstein and Diddy, would shed light on matters the American people deserve to understand, he stated in a recent interview. It's time to clear the air and reveal who's been involved in covering up the truth. The call for declassification comes amid a renewed public appetite for transparency, particularly regarding high-profile investigations and allegations involving the powerful. Critics, however, caution that such disclosures could ignite a legal and social firestorm. They warn that releasing the names on these lists without full context could lead to unwarranted assumptions and reputational damage, particularly for those only peripherally involved. Supporters of Patel's initiative argue that transparency is necessary to maintain accountability, especially when such high-stakes figures are involved. Political analyst Sarah Kendrick observed, "The push for these declassifications speaks to a broader demand for honesty from institutions that have historically shielded the powerful. These are questions the public has waited too long to have answered." Despite the mounting anticipation, Trump's camp has yet to confirm whether the requested declassifications will proceed. Patel's push has sparked intense debate within conservative circles, with some Republicans viewing the move as an attempt to solidify Trump's legacy of anti-establishment transparency, while others fear it could backfire if sensitive information is released without proper vetting. News of Patel's call for declassification has reverberated across social media, with responses ranging from enthusiastic support to skepticism. Many online users have voiced strong opinions, with some hailing Patel as a champion of transparency and others questioning the potential consequences. "People have a right to know, but there's a responsible way to go about it," commented one Twitter user. Others are more critical, questioning the timing and motivations behind the push. "This seems more like a political stunt than a genuine call for transparency," another user wrote, hinting at the timing of the announcement amid Trump's ongoing political resurgence. While the outcome remains uncertain, the push from Patel places additional pressure on the Trump team to address the public's growing calls for truth. As demands for accountability increase, all eyes are on whether Trump will heed the call for massive declassification, potentially exposing some of the nation's most guarded secrets. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode of Atomic Biscuits for this week. Thank you for tuning in. I named this episode Carillion because it does seem like the bells of freedom are ringing. Please take the time to thank those around you who make this time possible. Remember, it is a season of joy. To spend some time with your family and your friends and celebrate the end of 2024 and perhaps the new dawn of a whole new era. See you on the next episode of Atomic Biscuits. So long, everyone.
Thanks for joining us for Atomic Biscuits. Tune in again next week for more news and music. Check out BACFA on Gab at BACFA, as well as BitChute, Rumble, Dlive and Odyssey. Check out LastScoutRadio.com for fun content. Listen to WBN 324 on radio stations around the world, on many streaming platforms, and World Broadcasting Network WBN 324.zil.